The danger of forgiveness lies not only in how others perceive it, but in what it does to your own mind. Every time you forgive, you weaken your instinct for justice. You dull your own sharpness. You teach yourself to suppress the fire that demands balance and consequences. Over time, this self-betrayal corrodes your character. You become a man who tolerates disrespect, who accepts betrayal, who normalizes humiliation. This is how forgiveness destroys you from the inside. The more you forgive, the more you adjust to weakness until weakness becomes your very nature. A man who forgives too much is not kind. He is broken. He has abandoned the natural instinct to defend his dignity and accepted a life of quiet submission. Machiavelli would call this the path of fools, a road that leads to ruin. There is also a political truth hidden within forgiveness. A man who forgives too often loses credibility. His word carries no weight because everyone knows he will forgive if crossed. His authority is a joke, his threats empty, his power an illusion. People respect what they fear, not what they pity. Forgiveness creates pity. Punishment creates respect. A prince who forgives assassins will not be seen as merciful. He will be seen as weak. A leader who forgives traitors is not admired. He is despised. Forgiveness confuses pity with loyalty. And Machiavelli reminds us that pity never lasts, but fear endures. Think about the relationships in your own life. When someone wrongs you and you forgive, what happens? At first you may feel morally superior. You may think, I am above this. I will not sink to their level. But what does the wrongdoer feel? Do they feel awe at your greatness? Or do they feel freedom to repeat the crime? More often than not, forgiveness teaches them that you are an easy target. They learn that you do not bite back. They learn that you can be disrespected without consequence. They learn that you are safe to exploit. Forgiveness, then, is not a gift to yourself, but an invitation to others to continue harming you. It is not strength, it is surrender. Some will argue that forgiveness frees you from anger, that holding grudges weighs you down. But this is a lie told to keep you weak. Anger, when controlled, is not a burden, it is fuel. It keeps you alert, sharp, unwilling to tolerate injustice. The memory of betrayal sharpens your instincts and strengthens your boundaries. It reminds you who cannot be trusted, who must be kept at a distance, who must be crushed if they dare return. To erase that memory in the name of forgiveness is to blind yourself voluntarily. It is to walk into future betrayals unprepared. Forgiveness clouds your vision. Anger clarifies it. The truth is, most people who preach forgiveness do so because they fear the consequences of vengeance. They want you to forgive them for their wrongs. They want to escape punishment. They wrap their selfishness in virtue and call it morality. But morality is often just manipulation. Do not fall into the trap of thinking forgiveness makes you enlightened. Enlightenment without strength is slavery. True mastery is to remember everything, to forgive nothing, and to carry your grudges not as chains but as weapons. A grudge is a record of reality. It reminds you of what people are capable of and ensures you do not repeat mistakes. Forgiveness erases the record, and in doing so, it erases your defense. Even in personal ambition, forgiveness is poison. Imagine a rival humiliates you in public. If you forgive, you allow the humiliation to stand. You confirm that they were right to test you. Others will see your silence as weakness and begin to challenge you too. But if you respond with precision, if you retaliate in a way that leaves no doubt, you turn the tables. Forgiveness leaves the wound open. Retaliation closes it with fire. Machiavelli would tell you, never let an offense go unanswered. Never allow the insult to breathe in the air. Unchallenged, strike, and strike in such a way that no one dares insult you again. History shows again and again that forgiveness is nothing but a delay of destruction. Julius Caesar forgave his enemies. He pardoned those who conspired against him, seeking to appear merciful. They repaid his forgiveness with knives in his back. Had he crushed them when he had the chance, his rule may have lasted longer. Abraham Lincoln forgave Southern leaders after the American Civil War, allowing them to keep power in their states. The result, decades of bitterness, oppression, and new conflict. Forgiveness does not dissolve hatred, it preserves it. Only strength can end it. Only punishment can ensure it does not rise again. there is also a more personal deception. Forgiveness does not bring peace. It brings silence but not peace. The wound is still there, hidden under the mask of mercy. You may tell yourself you have forgiven, but in the quiet of the night, you will remember. The betrayal will haunt you. The disrespect will echo. The humiliation will return. Forgiveness does not heal. Justice heals. Retaliation heals. Balance heals. The soul does not crave forgiveness. It craves restoration. Forgiveness leaves it empty, unsatisfied, restless. Those who forgive endlessly often find themselves consumed by hidden resentment, because the debt was never paid. Machiavelli would also warn you of the danger of forgiving too soon. Even if retaliation is not possible at the moment, forgiveness should never be declared. To forgive publicly is to admit weakness. Instead, you remain silent, you wait, you bide your time, and when the moment is right, you act. Forgiveness may be spoken by the weak to excuse their helplessness, but patience belongs to the strong. The difference is clear. The weak forgive because they cannot punish. The strong wait because they choose when to punish. In one there is surrender, in the other there is strategy. Society, religion, and culture will continue to praise forgiveness because it makes men controllable. Forgiving men do not revolt. Forgiving men do not retaliate. Forgiving men do not demand justice. They accept, they submit, they bow. Power has always known this truth, which is why rulers encourage forgiveness among the masses. It keeps them tame. Machiavelli's wisdom, however, cuts through this illusion. He knew that forgiveness is not divine. It is a tool of control. To be free, to be powerful, to be untouchable, you must strip forgiveness from your nature. You may act merciful if it suits your purpose, but in your heart, you never forgive, never forget. Even in family and friendship, the same truth holds. Forgive a friend who betrays you, and you invite future betrayal. Forgive a partner who disrespects you, and you set the standard for how you will be treated forever. Forgive a family member who lies to you, and you give them permission to lie again. People learn how to treat you by how you respond to their wrongs. Forgiveness teaches them that you will tolerate anything. Punishment teaches them that betrayal has a price. Which one protects your dignity? Which one ensures respect? Which one would Machiavelli advise? The answer is clear. In the end, forgiveness is not strength. It is theater. It is a costume worn by those who fear confrontation, who fear judgment, who fear being called cruel. But cruelty is often necessary to protect yourself. Mercy is often fatal. The balance of power does not care about your morality. It only cares about your resolve. Forgiveness makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability invites predators. The unforgiving man, however, becomes a fortress. He may smile, he may speak kindly, he may even pretend to forgive, but his memory is sharp and his justice inevitable. This is true strength. This is how you rise above the chains of weakness disguised as virtue. To understand why forgiveness is weakness, you must first understand human nature as Machiavelli saw it. People are selfish, ambitious, envious, and cruel when it suits their interests. They are loyal only when it is convenient and moral only when it costs them nothing. In such a world, forgiveness is not a noble act. It is a foolish gamble. You are betting that the person who wronged you will change, will repent, will feel guilt. But guilt is rare, and change is rarer still. Most men, once forgiven, see their actions as justified. They say to themselves, if I was forgiven, then it was not so wrong. Forgiveness feeds their arrogance instead of correcting their behavior. This is why Machiavelli urged rulers to be feared rather than loved. Fear corrects, love excuses. Forgiveness is the greatest excuse of all. The psychology of forgiveness is also important to expose. When you forgive someone, you may think you are rising above the offense. In truth, you are lowering yourself beneath the offender. You are saying, your actions had power over me, but I will pretend they didn't. Forgiveness disguises submission as virtue. A man who forgives too often is a man who refuses to fight for himself. He avoids confrontation not because he is strong, but because he is afraid. Forgiveness then becomes a mask for cowardice, and cowardice never leads to respect. In politics, in business, in relationships, respect is built through consequences. Remove consequences, and you remove respect. Forgiveness is the removal of consequences. Machiavelli would remind us of a law of power. People respect what they cannot cross without cost. When you forgive, you remove that cost. When you punish, you create it. This is why vengeance, retaliation, and justice are not signs of cruelty, but signs of strength. They show the world that you are a man who demands balance, a man who will not be treated as a victim, a man who keeps his word. Forgiveness destroys this image. It paints you as endlessly patient, endlessly tolerant, endlessly submissive. No one fears to harm a forgiving man, because forgiveness means safety for the offender. And once others know they are safe to wrong you, they will continue to wrong you without hesitation. History is filled with examples of men who chose forgiveness and paid with their lives. Consider King Charles I of England. He forgave his enemies again and again, hoping to maintain peace. Instead, they used his mercy to strengthen their rebellion, and eventually they executed him. Had he been ruthless, had he crushed his enemies early, he might have preserved his throne. Instead, his forgiveness became the noose around his neck. Contrast this with rulers like Caesar Borgia, whom Machiavelli admired. Borgia never forgave betrayal. He punished swiftly, violently, decisively. As a result, he created stability and fear. And for a time, he held power more firmly than any forgiving king ever did. Forgiveness is also an illusion, because it does not erase memory. A wrong once done is never forgotten. Even if you forgive, the wound remains in your subconscious. You may say the words, "I forgive you," but your mind remembers. You hesitate to trust again. You feel resentment deep inside. Forgiveness then becomes hypocrisy, a performance for the outside world, while inside you still bleed. Would it not be better to transform that wound into action, to retaliate, to restore balance, to close the wound with resolution, rather than cover it with lies? Forgiveness postpones healing. Justice completes it. There is also the issue of reputation. Machiavelli warned that appearances matter more than reality. A man must appear strong, unyielding, in control. Forgiveness ruins this image. It makes you look soft, sentimental, emotional. Even if you think forgiveness shows inner strength, others will interpret it as outer weakness. And in the world of power, if people believe you are weak, perception creates reality. Thus, forgiveness, no matter how noble in your mind, damages your reputation. People will trust you less, follow you less, and respect you less. They will push boundaries because they believe you lack the will to enforce them. You must also recognize that forgiveness is a trap laid by society. The masses are taught to forgive because it keeps them docile. Religion preaches forgiveness because it maintains order among believers. Leaders encourage forgiveness because it prevents rebellion. If every wrong were avenged, society would shake with constant conflict. To prevent this, forgiveness is glorified as a virtue. But it is not a virtue, it is obedience. It is submission disguised as morality. The powerful rarely forgive. They may pardon, but only as a calculated act, never from genuine mercy. The powerless are told to forgive because it keeps them powerless. If the weak demanded justice instead, the entire structure of control would collapse. Consider your own life. How many times have you forgiven someone who hurt you, only for them to hurt you again? How many times did forgiveness lead to repeated patterns of betrayal? Each time you thought forgiveness would free you, but instead it enslaved you. The cycle of forgiveness is endless because human nature does not change. A liar lies again, a cheater cheats again, a traitor betrays again. Forgiveness gives them permission to continue. Punishment forces them to stop, which is truly merciful. To forgive endlessly and allow evil to continue, or to punish once and prevent future harm. Forgiveness is not compassion, it is negligence. Even when forgiveness seems necessary, it is better to forgive strategically rather than sincerely. You may forgive with your mouth, but never with your heart. You may act mercifully to lull an enemy into complacency, but you never forget their offense. You hold it like a blade hidden under your cloak, ready to strike when the moment is right. This is not forgiveness, it is strategy. A true Machiavellian never forgives. He only delays. He waits until the punishment will serve his power most effectively. The weak forgive because they have no choice. The strong pretend to forgive until they choose to act. You must learn to see forgiveness as a disease of the spirit. It spreads through your character, making you tolerant of abuse, accepting of humiliation, comfortable with betrayal. Slowly, you lose the fire that defines strength. You become a man who accepts rather than demands, who yields rather than fights, who rationalizes rather than resists. In the end, you are hollow. You are a man others exploit without fear. You become not a leader, not a fighter, but a servant dressed in the robes of a saint. Forgiveness turns lions into lambs, warriors into slaves, kings into martyrs. Instead, cultivate the opposite of forgiveness, remembrance. Remember every betrayal. Remember every insult. Remember every slight. Do not carry it as pain, but as fuel. Let it sharpen you, focus you, drive you. Build a memory of wrongs so that you may never fall into the same traps again. Forgiveness erases memory, but remembrance builds wisdom. Those who forgive easily learn nothing. Those who remember everything become impossible to deceive. Your memory is your shield, your sword, your map through treacherous terrain. Forgiveness would have you throw that map into the fire and wander blind. To live without forgiveness is not to live in bitterness, but to live in clarity. You see people as they are, not as they wish to appear. You do not lie to yourself about their character. You do not allow words to replace deeds. You judge by actions, and you respond with equal force. This is strength. This is how you protect your dignity, your respect, your power. Machiavelli did not write for saints. He wrote for survivors. And survival demands that you abandon forgiveness. For forgiveness is death disguised as kindness. The world respects strength, not mercy. Mercy is appreciated only when it comes from someone who could destroy you, but chooses not to. Forgiveness without power is not seen as mercy. It is seen as weakness. When a beggar forgives an insult, no one applauds his nobility. They laugh at his helplessness. When a king forgives an insult, it is not really forgiveness. It is strategy, because everyone knows he could crush the offender at any moment. This is the critical difference. Forgiveness has value only when backed by the capacity for vengeance. Without that capacity, forgiveness is submission. Machiavelli would warn you never to mistake submission for virtue. Why does forgiveness fail in the real world? Because it misunderstands human psychology. People do not respond to kindness with gratitude. They respond with greed. When you show forgiveness, they see an opening, a weakness to exploit. If you forgive once, they believe you will forgive again. Forgiveness becomes a cycle of exploitation, and you, the forgiver, become a resource for others to use, a doormat for their cruelty, a sponge for their sins. The more you forgive, the more they take. Forgiveness creates predators, not peace. Even in your personal life, you can see this truth. How many friends, partners, or colleagues have betrayed you more than once? Did forgiveness ever change them? Or did it simply teach them that they could repeat the same behavior without consequence? Forgiveness never transforms the offender. It only transforms the victim into a perpetual victim. Real change comes from punishment, consequence, and fear. If you want someone to change, you do not forgive them. You make them regret crossing you. Regret reforms. Forgiveness excuses. Look to history again. The Roman Empire did not thrive on forgiveness. It thrived on discipline, on swift and brutal consequences for disobedience. When soldiers deserted, they were executed. When conquered tribes rebelled, they were crushed. Rome was feared. And because it was feared, it was respected. Forgiveness would have shattered its authority. Contrast this with the fall of the Byzantine Empire, which was plagued by weak emperors who forgave treachery, allowed conspiracies, and pardoned rebels. Their mercy led to endless plots, civil wars, and invasions, until the empire collapsed. Forgiveness did not preserve their realm, it hastened its death. This lesson applies at every level of life. In politics, in business, in family, in friendship. When you forgive, you invite repetition. When you punish, you create deterrence. Machiavelli insisted that fear is more reliable than love. Why? Because love is fickle but fear endures. Forgiveness belongs to the realm of love. Punishment belongs to the realm of fear. Which one would you rather rule with? Which one would keep you safe? Which one would ensure loyalty? The answer is obvious, but society will tell you the opposite. Society will say, forgive and forget. Society will praise forgiveness as noble, godlike, enlightened. This is propaganda. It is designed to keep you weak, to keep you passive, to prevent you from demanding justice. Forgiveness is preached to the masses because it makes them easier to control. If every man demanded vengeance, no government could maintain order. If every worker refused to forgive exploitation, industries would collapse. If every citizen refused to forgive lies, politicians would fall. Forgiveness is the glue of oppression. It is the opiate of the exploited. The powerful demand forgiveness from the powerless, but they themselves never forgive. Think of the courtroom. A poor man who commits a crime begs for forgiveness, but rarely receives it. The law punishes him swiftly. But when a powerful man is wronged, does he forgive? No, he sues. He imprisons. He destroys his opponent. Forgiveness is for the weak, not for the strong. The strong know that consequences preserve their status. The weak are told to forgive, so they will never rise. Do you see the trick? Forgiveness is not virtue. It is a leash placed around your neck. If you wish to live by Machiavelli's wisdom, you must throw off this leash. You must reject the false virtue of forgiveness. Instead, cultivate the art of response. When wronged, do not suppress your anger. Channel it. When betrayed, do not forget. Record it in your memory, like a debt waiting to be collected. When disrespected, do not excuse. Make it clear that disrespect has a price. This does not mean you lash out blindly. Machiavelli would never advise foolish rage. He would advise calculated retaliation. Strike not when you are weakest, but when you are strongest. Do not forgive. Do not forget. Wait, watch, and then strike with precision. That is the path of power. Understand that forgiveness also kills self-respect. Each time you forgive someone who does not deserve it, a piece of your self-respect dies. You tell yourself you are strong, but deep inside you feel small. You rationalize, you excuse, you lie to yourself to avoid facing the truth, that you allowed someone to walk over you. This corrodes your spirit. Over time, you lose confidence, you lose assertiveness, you lose pride. Forgiveness becomes a poison you drink daily, thinking it will heal you, when in reality it eats you alive. To refuse forgiveness is to protect your dignity. To demand consequences is to guard your soul. And what of peace? Many argue that forgiveness brings peace, but this is false peace, fragile peace, temporary peace. Real peace comes from resolution. When justice is done, when balance is restored, the wound closes. Forgiveness leaves the wound open, covered with a thin bandage of words. Beneath, the infection festers. Forgiveness does not resolve conflict. It buries it alive, where it grows stronger. Only justice buries conflict in its grave. Forgiveness buries it in your heart. A Machiavellian does not forgive. He calculates. If it serves him to pardon an enemy in order to gain loyalty from others, he pardons, but this is not forgiveness. It is politics. If it serves him to appear merciful to win support, he acts merciful, but in his heart, he never forgets and he never trusts. The mask of forgiveness is a weapon, nothing more. The man who truly forgives is a fool. The man who pretends to forgive but waits for his opportunity, that man is wise. You must rewire your thinking. Stop seeing forgiveness as holy. Start seeing it as dangerous. Stop believing forgiveness makes you superior. Start believing it makes you vulnerable. Stop calling forgiveness strength. Call it what it is, surrender. And Machiavelli would remind you, surrender is never admirable. It may be necessary at times, but it is never admirable. Forgiveness is not strength, it is dressed up surrender. So what should you do instead of forgiving? You must practice the discipline of consequence. Train yourself to respond proportionally to every offense. If someone insults you, you do not need to destroy them, but you must ensure they regret it. If someone betrays you, you must remove them from your trust permanently. If someone harms you gravely, you must make an example of them so that others never dare repeat it. This is not cruelty, it is self-preservation. Cruelty is mindless, consequence is measured. Cruelty serves rage, consequence serves order. And here is the final truth. Forgiveness is weakness because it ignores reality. Reality is not moral. Reality does not care about virtue. Reality rewards strength, decisiveness, and clarity. The lion does not forgive the hyena for biting it. The eagle does not forgive the snake for striking. Nature does not forgive, it balances. Nature is ruthless, and because it is ruthless, it survives. Man, too, must be ruthless if he wishes to survive with dignity. Forgiveness removes ruthlessness. It makes man unnatural, vulnerable, breakable. Machiavelli saw this clearly, and it is why he warned against it. To forgive endlessly is to betray your own survival. Strength comes from clarity, and clarity begins when you erase illusions. Forgiveness is one of the greatest illusions human beings have been taught to worship. It masquerades as wisdom, but in truth, it blinds you to the patterns of power that govern all human relations. Once you free yourself from this illusion, you begin to see life as it is, a constant negotiation of strength, reputation, and consequence. The man who does not forgive becomes sharper, more decisive, more aware of the motives of others. He does not waste his time hoping for the transformation of those who wronged him. Instead, he spends his time building defenses and striking opportunities. This clarity creates power. When you refuse to forgive, you stop living in denial. Denial is the true prison of the forgiver. You convince yourself, they didn't mean it. They will change, I am above this. These are lies that protect your pride while eroding your strength. The one who never forgives does not need lies. He admits, this person has revealed their nature. I will believe them. I will never allow them to do this again. This is not bitterness, it is realism. Realism shields you from harm far better than the fantasy of forgiveness. Consider how leaders maintain their rule. A ruler who forgives too easily is despised. He seems weak, indecisive, easily manipulated. His subjects lose respect for him. His rivals gain courage, and his allies begin to doubt him. On the other hand, a ruler who is consistent in his consequences is feared and respected. Even if he is hated, he is obeyed. Obedience is worth more than love. Machiavelli knew this deeply, which is why he insisted that it is far safer to be feared than loved. Forgiveness dissolves fear. Punishment sustains it. Without fear, there is no stability. Without stability, there is no power. In personal life, this principle is the same. Your relationships thrive not on forgiveness, but on boundaries. Boundaries are lines of consequence. They tell others what you will and will not accept. When someone crosses them and you forgive, you erase the line. When someone crosses them and you enforce the consequence, the line hardens. Every time you enforce a boundary, respect grows. Every time you forgive, respect shrinks. Eventually, you teach others how to treat you, not through your words, but through your responses. Those who never forgive are rarely crossed more than once. Those who always forgive are crossed endlessly. Now let us address the spiritual argument. Many religions preach forgiveness as divine. They insist that only by forgiving can you achieve peace of soul. But here lies a paradox. Even the gods of these religions rarely forgive without condition. Divine forgiveness is almost always tied to punishment, penance, or repentance. Even heaven and hell are systems of consequence, not pure absolution. Forgiveness in human society was twisted into a tool of control, disconnected from the harsher reality of justice. Machiavelli would remind you that if even gods require conditions, why should mortals forgive without them? Why should you, powerless and betrayed, offer what even the divine withholds freely? You must understand that resentment is not your enemy. Resentment is fuel. It tells you who has harmed you, who cannot be trusted, where danger lies. Resentment is the scar that reminds you not to repeat mistakes. To forgive is to erase resentment, but in doing so, you erase memory. You erase wisdom. The wise man does not erase scars. He studies them, he learns from them, he sharpens his strategy with them. Only the fool burns the book of his own lessons by forgiving. And yet some will accuse you. If you never forgive, you will become bitter. This is another illusion. Bitterness comes not from refusing to forgive, but from pretending to forgive when you are still wounded. Bitterness festers in suppressed anger. In lies, you tell yourself to appear noble. When you refuse to forgive, when you embrace consequence, bitterness fades because truth has been honored. You do not pretend to be at peace. You create peace by restoring balance. A man without illusions is never bitter. He is clear. Look again to history's greatest survivors. Nations like Sparta, empires like Rome, rulers like Napoleon. They did not survive through forgiveness. They survived through unshakable discipline. When betrayal occurred, it was punished. When enemies surrendered, they were either absorbed or destroyed, but never simply forgiven. Forgiveness played no role in their greatness. If anything, when forgiveness did appear, it signaled their decline. Forgiveness is not the mark of rising powers, but of crumbling ones. Weak kings forgive. Strong kings punish. Weak nations pardon. Strong nations defend. Weak individuals excuse. Strong individuals set boundaries. And so, what is the alternative path? It is not endless cruelty, for cruelty breeds rebellion. It is not mindless revenge, for revenge can enslave you to your anger. The alternative is measured consequence. It is the middle path between rage and forgiveness. You calculate what is owed, and you collect it. You show others that every action has a price. Sometimes that price is small. Sometimes it is final, but it is always paid. This path is the Machiavellian path. It is cold, rational, efficient, and unbreakable. It ensures survival. It builds reputation. It commands respect. Once you adopt this philosophy, your life changes. People will sense it. They will feel that you are not one to be trifled with. They will think twice before crossing you. They will respect you more than the forgiving man, because deep down everyone respects consequence. Even those who beg for forgiveness admire those who deny it, because it proves strength secretly. Even they know that forgiveness is weakness. That is why they demand it from others, but never practice it themselves. To refuse forgiveness is to expose the hypocrisy of the world. And here is the final warning Machiavelli would whisper into your ear. Forgiveness is not only weakness, it is dangerous. It gives your enemies time to recover, rebuild, and strike again. To forgive an enemy is to leave a sword at your back. To forgive a betrayer is to hand them the keys to your house a second time. To forgive the disrespectful is to write them an invitation to disrespect you again. Forgiveness multiplies your enemies, weakens your defenses, and sabotages your future. To survive, you must harden yourself. Never forgive, never forget, always calculate, always respond. The man who forgives is easy to rule. The man who never forgives is dangerous. Which would you rather be? Would you rather be the pawn who forgives endlessly, or the king who is feared because he never does? Would you rather die noble but exploited, or live strong and unbreakable? The choice is yours. Forgiveness is the philosophy of the weak. Consequence is the philosophy of the strong. Choose wisely, for your future depends on it. And when the world tells you, but what about love? What about compassion? You must answer with truth. Compassion without strength is manipulation. Love without consequence is slavery. Forgiveness is not compassion. It is surrender dressed as virtue. True compassion protects the innocent, punishes the guilty, and prevents harm from repeating. True compassion demands justice, not forgiveness. Machiavelli knew this, and now so do you. The time has come to abandon the illusion. The time has come to strip forgiveness of its false halo. The time has come to embrace consequence as the true path of survival and power. So listen closely. Never again say, "I forgive you." Instead say, "I will remember." Never again grant mercy without calculation. Instead, grant consequence with precision. Never again bow to the illusion of moral superiority. Instead, rise in the clarity of power. The strong do not forgive, they endure. They punish, they command. The weak forgive and are forgotten. Which will you be? That is the only question that matters.